Okay, welcome. As we wait for Rabbi Burg to sign on, I'm very excited about this, having Rabbi Burg on. Rabbi Burg is a true master of the world and of understanding, and very, very excited to have him on our program. Just in case you're tuning in, this is Pillow Shmooz, something new that we're trying here, having interesting guests on my Facebook page and discussing interesting things with them. Looking forward to the discussion with Rabbi Burg. I think it'll be pretty exciting. I'm glad there's so many people signed on. Should be really, really great conversation. By the way, I don't know if this would work 100%, but if you had questions, I do have my phone here open. I'm not sure 100% it would work, and I could see Facebook comments coming in. So I'm not 100% sure it would work, but I do have the ability to, I guess, to see comments, and that would be exciting if I could see them. So that would be could work. Okay, I hope everybody is doing okay here in Israel. Things get more and more restrictive. I'm a little scared to even look because I knew Prime Minister Netanyahu was speaking to the nation at 9. A little worried what new rules are out there. I myself am in ending my quarantine. I've had a 10-day quarantine from my return from America, and I was on a 13-day trip to America. So while I've spent some time with my family through a window, I haven't actually really been with my family. I haven't been in my house for 13 days, for 23 days. So tomorrow I'll be coming out. So I'm very excited about that possibility. It's not a possibility. It should be for sure. Thank God, Baruch Hashem, I've had no symptoms, and I'm healthy. So God willing, it should be that way for me, myself, and for everybody, for all of our families. So very excited about that possibility. Otherwise, if you look at my Facebook, something fascinating is just interesting. Really, really incredible. The weddings. We've had 3 weddings in Mitzvah Yericho tonight. 3 weddings in Mitzvah, all done in a creative, out-of-the-box fashion, where we've had just incredible times. Rabbi Burg is here. He's using his interesting background. He's unless he is in San Francisco.
What do you mean? I'm in San Francisco. What kind of question is
that? Okay, so welcome, Rabbi Burg. It's incredible to have you with us. As a lot of people watching already, my Facebook counter says 1,644 people. I might be making that up, but we do have a lot of people here, and we're excited to have you. Let's start off this way. An interesting, just a great way of starting off. Just tell us a little bit about your background. So maybe some people don't know who you are. I think everybody in the world knows who you are. They know you a lot better than they know me. So just give us a little. What's your background? What's your current position? What are your responsibilities as a make a shackle here when we start off?
Amen. Well, first of all, I apologize. I don't have a drink. Is that a minhag for this Facebook?
No. I get very thirsty. So no, I would have told you. Go ahead. I have 2 drinks here, so don't mind me. Go ahead.
No problem. My background is I grew up in New York. I grew up in Brooklyn and Flatbush, and went to Israel after high school for 2 years. Came back, went to an NCSY Shotaro when I was 19. Decided I wanted to do that. Was there for 22 years. Wound up was the assistant regional director at Central East, which is Cleveland, Columbus, Detroit, Pittsburgh, Annapolis, Cincinnati, Dayton, Toledo. Then I was a West Coast regional director, which was San Diego up to Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, out to El Paso, Texas. That's actually where you and I met when I was connected to LA. And then I became the national director of NCSY. I'm managing director of OU, and that rounded out about 22 years of my life. Then I went to Sun Regional Center for a couple of years, where I was the East Coast director, did all their East Coast work in New York. And about almost 5 years ago, I became the CEO of Aish Hatorah, which has branches all around the world. And it's just a phenomenal organization. I live in Bergenfield, New Jersey, although most people never really know where I live because I'm always traveling. But I actually do, in fact, live in New Jersey with my wife and 6 kids.
Wow, it's great. That's Okay, I knew most of that, so that's great. And just to correct one thing, we did spend a lot of time together in Los Angeles, but truth be told, we met on the streets of Mea Shearim,
That is true.
shopping on a couple days before Yom Kippur. So,
That is true.
but so here's my question for you. This is something that everybody hears about Aish Hatorah. We see Aish Hatorah online. We see people from Aish Hatorah. We see successful students from Aish Hatorah. And it seems, you could walk into the Aish Hatorah building in Jerusalem. You stand at the Kotel. You turn around. You see Aish Hatorah. At one hand, it seems like it's a beginner's program. On the other hand, it seems like it's a gap year program. You've got 18-year-olds that just finished high school there. And then you see that there are top-level students at Aish Hatorah. So is it a kiruv place? Is it a yeshiva? What's going on at Aish Hatorah? What is it exactly?
Aish Hatorah opened up about 45 years ago. There was a very, very charismatic founder of Aish Hatorah named Mel Weinberg, who, this is not a commercial, but his biography literally is hitting stores right now. It's coming out right now between Purim and Pesach. And he was an amazing, amazing figure. He was really very taken of the issue of assimilation and intermarriage, which really, post-Holocaust in America in the 50s and 60s, really started to take hold. And no one was really paying much attention to it. And what he did was he wanted to create an institution and to basically take people that didn't know Aleph Beis and let them learn Torah. At the time, people thought he was crazy. Matter of fact, his biography mentions in there that people called him Noach the Meshugana. They thought he was Noach the crazy because he thought that someone that didn't know Aleph Beis could learn Torah. This was, obviously the days before our school didn't open up until the 80s. And if you weren't religious, you didn't know anything, you didn't have much shot. So he opened up a yeshiva, and it was just absolutely phenomenal. Back in the 70s, there were people that were traveling the world. They were going to like cults and ashrams and all these different things. They were backpackers, and it wasn't uncommon to go down to the Western Wall and see backpackers who were just on their way to India and decided to just pop into Israel for a day or two. And they started to develop classes for these people. They came in. And it became this place where people that had no background could study. And truth be told, it wasn't, he wasn't like, they have many people that had yeshivas. So there's a Rosh Yeshiva, a rabbi who wanted to go start a yeshiva. He really, his goal was that as a Jew, first and foremost, you have to take responsibility for the world around you. And if you see a problem, you have to deal with it. And so he saw assimilation and intermarriage, there's people leaving Jewish people as a real issue. And so he started this yeshiva, and then what he would do is he would take these guys and say, okay, now you got to go out, you got to kind of spread Torah to people, and you got to teach Jews that they can have meaning to their life. And this whole movement kind of sprang from that. And he has like these famous tapes where he went to Lakewood in the early 80s to basically talk to the people there about going out and reaching out to their fellow Jews. And so this whole movement started, and it just kind of built on this premise of number one is God. He was very big on God, knowing God, the Sheish Mitzvahs Tamidiyos, fearing God, loving God, things that most of us with a day school background kind of skip over. And if you walk into Aish, they'll talk about the Almighty, and that's really where one of our famous seminars, the Discovery Seminar, came from. It was really about people understanding that there was a God. And kind of like intellectually proving it. And also, I think this is an important issue. He was a tremendous intellect, and therefore Aish is really about the teaching of Torah, Aish Torah, the fire of Torah, to people. So this kind of broadened and built up to the point where, as you said, if you walk in to the main building today, our main building last year had about 150,000 people that came through for classes and all kinds of things. And we have a yeshiva that last year saw over 600 participants that came with very limited background. So you have that kind of like physical space to learn, to be inspired. And then you have things like Aish.com, because when the internet came out, because Noah was such a forward-thinking person, he said, okay, now we got to spread Torah through the internet. And in the beginning of the internet, Jews, many religious Jews weren't sure what to do with that. And he said, we're going to plant our flag, and Aish.com was born, which sees about 1 million people a month, just kind of going out there and getting articles out there. And
you say 1 million people a month?
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, Aish.com is made everywhere I go in the world. I rarely have someone that I interact with that doesn't go to Aish.com at some point.
I actually remember the two of us were in Washington on Capitol Hill, and we were sitting and talking to a congressman. I wouldn't mind if we said who it was. I think Congressman Ted Deutsch. We were
Yeah,
sitting in
sure.
his office, and when I introduced you as coming from Aish Hatorah, as the CEO of Aish Hatorah, he said, "Oh, I print out all your stuff before Rosh Hashanah to make sure I'm prepared for davening on Rosh
Yeah,
Hashanah."
yeah.
So that's
So that,
you talk about 1 million people a month. It's not just weirdos that happen to find it on a Google Drive from Google search from the middle of Asia somewhere. But you're talking about 1 million people a month, some very some leaders of the Jewish people and of all walks of life. That's a pretty amazing thing.
yeah, it is amazing everywhere I go. But the other piece of Aish, as I mentioned before, really our mantra is about taking responsibility. So people get a little confused. They're like, I'm gonna say Aish Torah, you teach Torah, but on the other hand, you do tremendous Israel advocacy, honest reporting, Jerusalem U, JRP, all these organizations came out of Aish Torah. And there's a great story that I know you'll appreciate, Ori, that during the Intifada in 2001, the guys were sitting and learning in the yeshiva, and outside there was the Intifada going on. There were rocks being thrown, tear gas, everything was going right out the window. And Noach got up in the basement and said, "Every one of you guys, for half an hour every day, you have to think about how you can do something about what's going on out there." And there was a young student named Elliot Matthias, also from a limited Judaic background. He was originally going to be a lawyer, kind of came to Aish. He said, "Well, why don't we just take students, bring them to Israel, and train them to defend Israel?" He went to the foreign ministry, he got a grant, and he started something called Hasbara Fellowships. So again, our approach, Rav Noah's approach was, if you see a problem in the world, you see something threatening the Jews physically or spiritually, you need to stand up and you need to take responsibility. And that's why so many organizations and things have sprung from Aish Torah.
Yeah, it's a strange thing because look, if you look at mainstream yeshiva world, and you look at what goes on in yeshivas, that's definitely not the pervasive attitude of somebody over there needs to learn more Torah, so it's my responsibility to bring it to them. You have people that come out of we don't have to mention places. You have people that come out of places and say, okay, I want to be a kiruv professional, and that's what they decide to do for a living. Much as some people say they want to be teaching in first grade for a living. But you don't have this sense of responsibility, really, of, and I'll quote it, that it seems like Rav Noach really stood for. So what pushed him to such an extent to say that, no, it's not just if you choose to do this, but this is really our responsibility. That culture at Aish Hatorah, which is really caught on, I think, in a lot of places, but not necessarily in yeshiva so much, where you have to go out. How is that culture so pervasive? How did that start? Where does that come from?
Look, I think you need to look at it historically, in that, post the Holocaust, there was a feeling that we had lost so much Torah, and we lost so many things that we needed to kind of bunker down, and we needed to learn Torah and just rebuild Talmidei Chachamim, Torah scholars, etc. I think where it comes from is the Bible. I mean, I think it's quite apparent if you open up Bible and Jewish history, the reason what's kept the Jews together, which I think for thousands of years, is this sense of responsibility for one another, that we care about one another, that we defend one another. I always point out that if you open the Bible and you look at Adam and Eve, right, with the first sin, what happens? When God comes to Adam and says, "Adam, what did you do?" He says, "Eve made me do it." And you go to Eve, "What happened?" Snake made me do it. Everyone's passing the buck. And then when you go to Cain and Abel, God goes to Cain and says, "What did you do? Where's your brother?" He says, "Am I my brother's keeper?" And then you go to Noah, takes personal responsibility. Right in the beginning, no one took responsibility for anything. Then Noah takes personal responsibility, but he doesn't take communal responsibility. And then Abram, the first Jew, he is the first person to take total communal responsibility, to the point where he defends Sodom and Gomorrah. Meaning he defends everyone. He, whether he Lot, he is just out there taking responsibility. And then it goes to Yehuda, and it goes to Moshe, and it goes throughout the Bible and throughout Jewish history, Queen Esther taking responsibility, on and on and on. You just have these phenomenal personalities that take responsibility for the Jewish people. We, unfortunately, we're very myopic, and we look at, like, okay, I've got my family, I'll take responsibility for my kids, which is a good thing, by the way. People should take care of their families. But at the end of the day, being a Jew means that I care about every Jew in the entire world. I think it's so implicit to the religion. I think that's where it comes from.
It's interesting you take that approach, because and I'm not arguing at all, but if you look, there's there's just, through, if you, I've got a bunch of svarim behind me here, and sometimes I use them, and you don't see that attitude. And I wonder if you would ask of Noach about that, if you would say that this is something new for our generation, or this is really what should have been happening throughout all time, and the fact that it wasn't is our problem. But that's not it's not a good thing that was going on, and really, or would he say that it's just our generation is so spent after the Holocaust that we really needed some extra effort to rebuild?
I think you did have it. I mean, I think throughout history of medieval times, Jews, Pidyon Shvuim, Jews would redeem a Jewish captive, and the non-Jews that would cause trouble knew that. The Jews would always stick up for Jews. You could travel anywhere in the world and show up on a Friday and say, hey, I need a place for Shabbos. I think they always knew that. I think that you're really talking about the period of emancipation, which even though it's the last 200 or 300 years, but this whole idea of Jews being secular and going away from the community is more of a recent idea. And I think, it didn't really hit stride in America until, and really worldwide, until more so after the Holocaust. And therefore, everyone's kind of like, what do we do with this exactly? But in the end of the day, that concept that, that Jews are brothers and sisters and we're family and I got to take care of family, I think it's implicit all the way through. I just think that, it's become more extreme because now, intermarriage and assimilation and just kind of dropping your identity is so much, like I mentioned before, when Aish was built in the 70s, people were searching for something spiritual. Today, much less so. In fact, the challenge today is you just can't get anyone's attention for more than 30 seconds, So that's really become the new challenge.
Interesting. Okay. That's makes sense. It's funny. There's I didn't bring this up on the notes that I sent you before about what I wanted to discuss, and I want to be very careful here because I don't want to put you in an uncomfortable position.
There is no such thing as putting me in an uncomfortable position, my friend. You can ask me anything and everything.
Okay, great.
Everything's on the table. I don't mind.
Okay, so there's people every once in a while they come along with the statements that say that assimilation is like the new Holocaust and intermarriage is like the new Holocaust, and you find that intermarried people and a lot of assimilated Jews and Jews that aren't let's say the non-Orthodox Jews get very offended by those comments, and they say well, how could you call it a Holocaust? The Holocaust was the death and annihilation of the Jewish people. Our assimilation, our intermarriage is part of our Judaism. We bring our Gentile spouse into the religion, not that we're leaving the religion. And to call it a Holocaust is a great insult to us and to our families. And it really becomes this hot potato where you have to balance, saying that intermarriage is not okay, while at the same time saying that you are not somebody that we're rejecting. How does Aish Hatorah? Again, I really apologize, Rabbi, because I didn't warn you this question was coming in. It only popped into my head now. So if you want to give an answer later,
I think it's a great question. I'm happy to address it if you want me to. Okay, you're drinking, so that means you do. Anyway, I think that look, I don't love that scenario of like it's like a Holocaust. And I think the Holocaust is a very special time of martyrdom in our history, and I don't love comparisons to it. That's just straight up. When I worked for Francis Wine, I've been a rabbi for many years. I never really told Holocaust stories for that reason. I felt like that overbearing guilt should be brought on people. To me, it's a part where our heart was broken, and we remember that. But I'll tell you what I would say though, and I'll tell you what I think the big issue has become, and this is really unprecedented. Is with the assimilation and intermarriage, it's one thing if someone assimilates and intermarriage and they're gone from the Jewish people, but what we're seeing today, possibly for the first time on a mass scale, is you're seeing a lot of Jews that are coming back to attack Jews. Some people call them self-hating Jews. I don't want to go that extreme in the title, but you're seeing Jews that, if you look and there's Justice for Palestine on campus, there's Jewish kids that are present in these institutions. If you look at, I think that this is really sick and horrible. If you look at the folks from If Not Now, who all they do is rip into the state of Israel, rip into other Jews. I think what they are doing is they are causing Jewish bloodshed. I think they're giving tremendous strength to our enemies. I think they're giving strength to people who don't like us. And, one of the things that I used to speak to the Simon Wiesenthal Center, I used to talk often about was that you find anti-Semites hiding behind liberal causes, social causes, right? What do I mean by that? in many times around Europe, the push to ban circumcision, the push to ban ritual slaughter and shechita, the push for BDS. A lot of times, these are people that really want the Jews to be pushed into the sea in Israel. And so therefore, while the Jewish people was a little bit, sleeping on the side and not educating Jewish kids, someone else was educating them. And so it's not just, it would almost be a benefit if people just assimilated and disappeared. That's not what's happening. They're getting a different narrative. And because the organized Jewish community is not on their game and not educating people the way that they ought to or they should, we have a young man who's at Aish Hatorah, one of our most terrific students, great guy, came in with long hair, tattoo up his arm, started learning Torah, who had spent, many months beforehand traveling to Palestinian villages because he was very sympathetic and very anti the Jewish Israeli perspective. Now that he's been with us for about a year, he has a very, very different perspective. So to me, the assimilation intermarriage was, 20, 30, 40 years. Today, it's taking our Jewish kids and turning them into anti-Semites and anti-Zionists.
Yeah, I take a little credit for that, because I took that young man on a trip around my neighborhood when I took him on an Aish trip on my crossing the line trips, and took him over, and he still writes to me. Yeah, every once in a while he has a question. He'll write to me to get the settler's perspective. So so that's great to hear that. I want to ask you, because we just talked about a lot of Israel being attacked, and Aish Hatorah in Yerushalayim sits in the old city. That's in East Jerusalem, and the world considers East Jerusalem occupied territory. They consider that really the capital of what a Palestinian state should be. And it's interesting that Aish Hatorah sits right there, prime real estate, looking over probably one of the greatest views of the Temple Mount. Your office has probably the greatest view of any office in Jerusalem, looking right over onto the Temple Mount, where you can see the Waqf and all the different call them not yet friends of ours. And how does Aish deal with people that I get it as a settler? People tell me that I'm an international criminal and I'm an immoral person. I got to imagine that Aish Hatorah sitting on that in that location gets it a lot more. How does Aish Hatorah deal with it when somebody comes along and says, that part of Jerusalem is not the Jewish state's capital. It's not the Jewish people's capital. That really should belong to the Palestinians. And by being there, you're impeding any sort of peace that could happen. How do you deal with questions like that and challenges like that?
I'll tell you, one of the most fascinating interviews I ever gave was to an Iranian reporter, and it was right after America had decided to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And so there was a tremendous amount of press that descended on the old city, obviously. And there was an Iranian reporter, and we were on the fifth floor in Aish, and she asked me some questions. I said, sure. And one of the things she said was, Muslims around the world, were absolutely terrified. What's going to happen now? They're not going to be able to come, the attack, all kinds of different things. She said, what do you have to say to that? I said, look, I'll be honest with you, as a Jew, for the last 2,000 years, right? There was always a Jewish presence, here in the old city. The Ramban Shul, all these different things. I said the only juncture was from 1948 to 1967 that we couldn't go over here. That's where the Jordanians occupied it. And frankly, as a Jew, if I was sitting where my office is now, I would have been shot. I would have been killed. I said, but since 1967, we recaptured the old city. The Muslims, the Jews, and the Christians have all had access to their holy places, and that tells you something. And I think, to me, that's the piece to talk about. And I always talk about it, which is, and I think that I talk to many Arabs. I have many Arab workers that work for us. I engage them, talk to them, and one of the things that you hear from a lot of them is that they, their living conditions, their wages, they're working, they're very happy, with Israel. And that's the untold story that doesn't get told, but many of them, won't say it publicly because they're scared for their lives. What does that tell you about democracy? So, in terms of Aish Hatorah, we have no problem, two big Israeli flags on our roof. This is who we are. This is who we've always been. But if someone wants to come in, again, even if they have that kind of like negative view, but if they want to come sit in the class, we've got classes from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. every single day. Well, not now because the building's closed because of Corona, but we switched our classes to online. But basically, I tell them is go sit in on a class. Just learn about Judaism, learn about what it really is. And put the politics aside and just try and get some spirituality in your life or connection to God. But yeah, I mean that's we're not apologetic for who we are, but we're also not in people's face. And if someone wants to come in and they want to sit in a class, even if we may not agree with them politically, we're happy for them to learn Torah.
That's great. Now, yeah, it's almost impossible to have a discussion nowadays. I'm actually impressed with the two of us. We've gone about 25 minutes, and that was the first mention of Corona. And I'm sitting here in what they call bidud in quarantine here. I've got like another 15 hours left, and then I'm a free man for the first time in 10 days. You mentioned something interesting that I saw was that immediately, as soon as the Israeli Ministry of Health came out with their proclamation of no more than 10 people gathered together, I saw that Aish Hatorah immediately abided by the rules, while other yeshivas in Israel looked at it and said, whatever, we don't have to really follow them. It's Bittul Torah if we follow them. I just saw Rav Schechter's son just sent me a response from his father about in terms of the differences between America and Israel, how Israel is allowing some sort of minyanim to go on. And Rav Schechter said, don't mess around. There's no reason to be that stringent. So how did Aish Hatorah come along and automatically, against what other yeshivas were doing, it automatically said, we should listen to the Ministry of Health? Where did that come from?
Look, Aish Hatorah is an interesting organization, top to bottom. We've always played by the rules. We play by rules because it's just not our agenda, again, to go the government this, that, go against anything. We do what we got to do. And, the government's telling us that this is what we have to do for our health. And, that's what we're going to do. What we've done is we've taken, we have a lot of students there. And it's interesting because a lot of students have gone back to America from the post, high school kind of seminaries and yeshivas. But our guys, they don't really know any better. They come from non-religious backgrounds. They're just staying and learning Torah. We've got, just a ton of guys still across from the Kotel, some of them with tattoos and earrings, sitting and learning Torah. What we've done is we make sure that by lunch and by dinner, by all meals, there's no more than 10 people in any one given area, which means it's a logistic nightmare. We're split up in all kinds of different rooms, getting food to everyone, et cetera, et cetera. And we split up the classes, meaning there's no more than 10 people in any given shir, chabura, or what have you. One of the advantages we have is our big, beautiful World Center is closed, unfortunately, due to everything. So we're able to kind of use that building and spread out from the yeshiva. But look, the bottom line is I think that this is something that we have to take very, very seriously. It's been interesting to me to watch because I think there was a lot of cynicism and skepticism in the beginning, but as every single country, in the world has tackled it in a similar way. You're talking the New York City public school system just shut its door. That's 1.1 million children, the largest in America, public school system. And it's a public school system that gives meals to children. It's not just about them going, they feed them and they give them a place to go. It's very complex, but yet they still close down. So I think that kind of like immediate cynicism is kind of waned a lot. I've seen a lot more trying to abide by it and try to go with the rules. But look, this is where Aish has always been. Aish has always been, we work with everyone and we try and do the best we can in any given situation.
That's great. Okay, great. Listen, Rabbi Burg, this is let me give you one final question here that I'll leave you with. Where do you see what's Aish's next big move? What's if you had all the resources and everything that you could possibly do, what's the next? What can we expect the next great thing from Aish Hatorah?
I think there's a few things that we're working on. Number one is social media. I don't think anyone, you're doing obviously a great job of this right now, but I don't see any Jewish organizations tackling social media in the way it has to be tackled. Ironically, that's because organizations aren't necessarily the place for social media. By definition, it's more of a person-to-person space. But one of the things, I'll give you an example that has just happened in the last very, very recently. It was Aish.com. I mentioned 1 million people going to check out Judaism. Our question was, how do you interact with them? And what we did was we created something called a live chat, where if you go on Aish.com, within probably 20 or 30 seconds, a rabbi will reach out to you and say, hey, can I help you? And they can create a relationship. And then many times, there's a beautiful story of a family in Oregon where the father knew he was Jewish. He didn't think the mother was Jewish. They had no connection. He bumped into this rabbi online. Next thing you know, he found out his wife is Jewish. He's Jewish. They wound up making out Aliyah to spot. It's like this amazing story you can read on Aish.com. So I think that, for us, it's engaging the Jew. And I think through social media, that's where they are. We're very, very heavily invested right now in young professionals in New York, in Israel, and other places. And we're going to be investing much more in young professionals because when you're in college, you have a little bit of your community. But once you get out of college, you start your first job, you kind of lose your community. And, so last year, for the first time in a long time, we had services at Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, hotels in Manhattan, et cetera, like that. So I think you're going to see us going to young professionals to kind of continue that. You're going to see us get a lot more people in our building. We're building a museum there to focus it. But it's all predicated on us getting past Corona because, everyone's charity dollars and tzedakah is kind of dropping, and we all have to figure out how to move forward kind of in this context. The last thing I just want to mention, though, is that we have moved all of our classes online. It's aish.com/live, aish.com/live, and we have constant stream of classes. They start in Israel, and so it's like 3-4 in the morning New York time, and then at some point we switch over to our New York branch. At night we switch over to our LA branch, and we've got constant stream of Torah content for people that are at home.
That's great. Now, Burg, if you have a minute, somebody left a question here. I don't know if you remember the Poltergeist from Los Angeles. So Barry is watching. Barry, one of our great law enforcement officers out in Los Angeles. He asked the question. He said, "We see amazing videos of Israeli neighborhoods, balconies and houses, etc., breaking out in song and celebration. Has there been anything that stands out to you as amazing during this time?"
As amazing? Yeah, I mean, I think what's amazing is it took a virus to have us, get closer to our families. I mean, I just wrote an email. It's actually going out tomorrow morning, where I was on the phone this morning, and one of my guys in Israel, and he's like, "How you doing?" I'm like, "Great." And he said, "Great. Like, we closed our building, we're imploding, we got no money, and He's like, "What's great about it?" I said, "What's great about it is I'm home with my family, And so it's ironic that, you're just finding out, like, we're all running around, we have time for our families. So here we are with our families. People are making weddings instead of being stressed out and all the things going on. They're just, okay, we'll just do a wedding in the backyard. We just get things done. And then you realize how caught up you are in the materialism in the room. I'm not saying the materialism is bad per se, but you realize how caught up you get into it. And then you kind of realize that the basics are that I love my family, I love my community, I love, I think that, and by the way, the opposite could also be true. I'm very worried that some families together, that there's tension that bubbles over. So I think that people have to really be careful to have activities and structure, and, when they're home. But if done right, spending time with the family is just really terrific.
I would have no idea, being the fact that I've been in quarantine for 10 days. And 13 days.
You'll know soon. You'll know soon, Harry.
I'm not even sure if tomorrow I'll recognize my family after 20. Truth be told, I gotta tell you, even being in quarantine, my family has just been amazing. They've I have a window that they come and they eat outside the window with me. And truth be told, even as somebody who's been in quarantine and hasn't really been physically with my family, but by distance, my family and also my community have made minyanim outside my house. And it really is that I would say that's something that's amazing to me when you see even so I've literally been stuck in this. I have a guest apartment downstairs. I've been stuck in here for 10 days. No one's been in here. I haven't been outside, and it's it really incredible to see, especially community coming together, community and, like you said, family. I always had a great appreciation for my wife and my family, but even more so now, being sort of stuck and not being able to go out. I don't wish it on anybody. It's horrible, but thank God I really will have tremendous gratitude to my family forever. Right, Burg, I gotta tell you, this is amazing. This is great having you with us here on our second episode of Pillow Schmooz, and it was great. And I really hope to have you again, and look forward to having you back in Yerushalayim when all this mess is over. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and I want to thank you for not taking out that souvenir I gave you after we left the White House. I figured that would make an appearance on this episode. But
is that just we should talk about that? it's right, Burg. Right, we left. Right, Burg and I. This is during the Bush administration, so it's a long time ago. We we went to the White House, and right, Burg and I both have a. This is good. Right, Burg and I both have this infatuation with the presidency and the White House, and this is our first chance to actually go to the White House. It was great, and we had a private tour for a half an hour of the West Wing, and we're walking around the West Wing. It was myself, Rabbi Burg, and a woman named Melinda, who lives now in the middle of Oklahoma, is married with a couple of kids, and we're walking around the West Wing, and I see the bathroom, and I say, we saw the Oval Office, we saw the cabinet room. I said, but what does the bathroom look like in the West Wing? Yeah. And by the way, Jared's watching now. Jared Bernstein used to work for the Obama administration, but this is before him.
Before we hung out with Jared, yeah.
Well, I turned to the guy taking us around. He was like a congressional, legislator, and he take a liaison, from the White House to the Congress. I said, oh, can I use the bathroom? And he said, you have a half an hour in the West Wing. You want to use the bathroom? I said, for sure. So you can't hold it. I don't want to hold it. So we went into the bathroom, and then right, Burg and Melinda said, oh, yeah, we got to go also. So we spent like a good 5 minutes. So I took as a souvenir, I took a couple of pieces of toilet paper, so I always have. You can't they don't give you anything in the West Wing. If you take anything, it's stealing. So that's the one thing that you could take that would be okay. So I took it. It doesn't have anything on it. It's just regular Charmin toilet paper. So I put it in my jacket, and as we walk out of the White House gates, as the gate closes, I say, guys, look what I have. Right, Burg says, look what I took, and he's got the whole roll.
And that was a present for you. I gave it to you.
Right, and that was a present. I have it here. I still have it. It's over there. And the best is it just looks like a half a roll of toilet paper. It doesn't look like anything special. And I keep it down here in my study where my desks are. And at one time, I see half the roll is missing. So one of my guests, we ran out of toilet paper. One of my guests saw it and he used it, so half the gift was gone, but the rest of it's still here. Right, Burg and I have both been to the White House separately and together, and we've got a lot of souvenirs from the White House now that are much better than nondescript toilet paper, and we have a lot of that to thank to Jared, who's watching. Who really helped us out. So that's great. All right, Burg, I'm gonna let us go here. I gotta say thank you very much. This is like a lot of fun, and I hope everybody tunes in tomorrow night. Tomorrow night we have Lahav Kharkov of the Jerusalem Post who'll be joining us, a reporter. We're going to discuss some Israeli elections and some politics, and we can't wait to have her. And I hope you'll tune in tomorrow night at the exact same time, 10 o'clock Israel time, 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and 1 o'clock Los Angeles time. Have a great night, everybody. Stay healthy and stay safe. Shalom to all.